Hi, we have in our studios today Dr. Azak Kaushik. He is the founder president of the National Alliance of Indo-Canadians, and we are going to have a small chat with him about the recent Pulwama attack and the aftermath. Okay, Dr. Kaushik. So, what do you think? What happens next now that India has gone and bombed in POK and in Pakistani territory, and they have retaliated? And what now? What next?
That's an interesting question, Bala. I mean, before I really like to dwell a bit into that, what lies next, I think it would be interesting now at this point that why and what happened really at this time, and why at this time. You see, India is going into election mode.
Date, yeah.
And you see that already, I mean, I was traveling through India during this time, and I saw lots of election kind of rhetoric already on the way, and so on. And I have just wondered, and I have thought about it, why at this stage there would be something like Pulwama. And more I think about it, what it comes around is that it is the timing, it's the election timing. The way I see it, this is a direct interference in the Indian elections, because the feeling, if you let us look from Pakistan's point
I
of
mean,
view.
do they gain in some way from this?
Well, they attempted to gain. Their purpose was to gain. Their goal was basically, well, Prime Minister Modi is a very, very strong kind of leader.
Yeah.
I mean, he's focused on development and things like that, and he's not willing to play this overly secular card because India as such is secular by nature. I mean, it's the first multicultural society of the world. So what really they have tried to hit at is, you see, often you would hear, I mean, when you look at the Indian media, which is full of a lot of hype, they would say, 56-inch chest of Prime Minister Modi.
Yeah, right.
And I think their goal was to hit and target Prime Minister Modi at this election time, to tell him that, hey, Indians, you always think he's a strong leader. He's not a strong leader.
So nobody expected him to act. Is that it?
Well, yes, and that is why the timing is important. And why did they do that is that they thought, well, very soon elections would be announced. They're already lost in this election rhetoric. Whatever has happened. I mean, 26/11 happened. The story is over. Pathankot happened. The story is over. People tend to forget very soon about it. So they thought, well, this will be one of those things. It'll happen. But what they didn't realize is that this shook the conscience of the entire Indian nation, because 44 people, almost all the states or provinces of India were touched by this.
I don't know if it is conscience. I think it aroused the anger. I think that is more.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. For how long India will allow itself to be bled like this, and that too at a time when we had a strong leader like Prime Minister Modi. I mean, he may be strong or he may not be strong. We can argue or contrary, but the point is this: that he is seen as one of the strongest prime ministers of India, who speaks his mind and who acts actually. So their thought was to present before the Indian people, before going to the election, look here, whom you considered a strong prime minister is no longer a strong prime minister. This was very cleverly planned to help the opposition parties. And I would not have thought about it this way. But after all this, again, the rhetoric is back. All the opposition parties, they are blaming how many people died or what happened. I mean, they didn't even appreciate that India took the action.
In the end, I think now other opposition parties trying to get an advantage from this attack and the Indian action, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's what is happening now.
Exactly. And that's the whole point. So their goal was to take advantage of this thing. Now, what Prime Minister Modi did? You see, what has happened is very important. We really have to think very deeply about it, what happened. I would have thought too, well, 1 week has passed or 2 weeks are almost there, and there's no action whatsoever by the Indian government with a strong Prime Minister at the helm. And I just wondered, but I did know having interacted a bit with Prime Minister Modi, that he is a strong leader. This is very clear on his mind. He is a committed patriot. He is a grassroots leader. So I did know that there would be action, and I was just wondering why it is taking that long. But what is very important is he took a strong action. It is for the first time since 1971 that Indian Air Force got deep into Pakistan territory and hit and targeted the terrorist hideouts or training centers, whatever you may call them. I mean, you know, we always thought India is a nuclear power, Pakistan is a nuclear power. I mean, a mutually assured destruction kind of a scenario that we heard in the context of Soviet Union and United States during those days. So this was a kind of thing that there would be, I mean, India won't be able to act. And probably this is what Pakistan thought. But you know what? They have called Pakistan's nuclear bluff this time. And now, I mean, Pakistan cannot hide under nuclear deterrent.
Today they've announced that they've already arrested some 44 Jaish-e-Mohammed, the terrorists.
Well, let me say it this way, you know, Bala, you and I know that we have been hearing this a lot over the years and years, but essentially what happened after 26/11? Did they take action?
No.
I mean, even now, even Pulwama, I have heard, is that they really say there's nothing there to act. There's nothing in this dossier, basically. They're trying to overlook it. They're playing it. You see, the reality is this, that Pakistan has proved to be a failed state. It has proved itself to be a rogue state. And you know what, in part of why Pakistan is doing this is, I mean, we all are responsible for this. The entire world community is responsible for this. The reason is simple. You see that Soviet Union got in Afghanistan. These people were trained to fight the war. All jihadis were prepared. So it is a kind of now residual effect that stays within Pakistan, and that has been strengthened by Pakistan itself. And I was you know, hearing somewhere that many of these people are running big businesses over there, and so they are very. So it's kind of industry now. Pakistan created this.
The terror industry.
Yes, they created the terror industry. They have it. It's functioning. It's very much aligned with their powerful military establishment. The civilian government is just for the namesake. So you can imagine we are in a very different situation today.
Yesterday, the Pakistan government said that there's a special Senate task force being set up to counter what they call Indian propaganda. So now they are setting up a propaganda unit to tell the world about their perception of Kashmir. How should India react to this?
Okay. Does Pakistan have a track record of that?
No, they don't now. So alternative now, there are some intelligence in India saying we should also set up a task forces on Balochistan, on Pakhtunistan, on Sindh, and then, you know, maybe support them, give them moral and political support as what Pakistan says, what they're giving to Kashmir.
Well, Bala, I'm not one of those who would say eye for an eye, because eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. There's no doubt about this thing. I think what we need to do is we need to look at it very coldly and rationally. India has to think we don't have to allow India to bleed. They have to really be very clear about this thing. And I think that is what they have demonstrated with Pulwama. Enough is enough. Now is the time. We will go and hit the targets. We will not touch the military establishment. And this has been very intelligently planned. Very intelligently planned. So their goal is the terrorists, and that's very justified, in fact. Now, when it comes to Pakistan, they have this homegrown industry which is growing like weed in Pakistan. And I think Pakistan has to really think about it, because there's an imbalance of power between military and the civilian government. you see that all these terrorists, they are saying, I hear you, and I heard about it and read it about it also, that even the foreign minister of Pakistan has said that we are studying the dossier and we would take an appropriate action. But I think that is more of a public relations exercise. Now, if Pakistan truly believes to put an end to terrorism, they can do it.
Yeah, but another interesting thing is, you speak to ordinary Pakistanis. I was also in the Middle East for many years, lots of Pakistani friends. None of them like these groups. They all hate the Jaish-e-Mohammed, the Hafiz Saeed and their groups. People don't like them. So how did they survive and flourish in Pakistan then? People don't like them. But they seem to have plenty of funds, plenty of armaments. So there is a deep deep state within the Pakistan army,
Yes.
Itself that is supporting this thing. Isn't it?
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. You said it right. It's the deep Pakistan establishment.
Yes.
It's deep inside Pakistan, the establishment, deep state, the word that you used. That's very appropriate word to use, in fact. The reason is this. There's a who created these jihadi groups? It's the Pakistani military establishment. They use them to achieve their purpose.
Yeah.
And I remember when there was a kind of intercept that happened when Prime Minister Vajpayee at that time tried to create peace, and you remember Musharraf visited Agra, and he took a bus to Lahore, and at that time there was an intercept, and it came from the military establishment at a higher level, and they said it very clearly that all these jihadis or terrorists, they are in our hands. We can use them to play. They are a puppet in the hands of Pakistani military, and they can use them and play with them as they like. And that is exactly, they are feeding on each other. And now it is aligned with I'm told they're involved in construction industry and things like that. They're big businesses now. So they are slush with funds as well because they're engaged with that. So it's a catch-22 situation. And it's a catch-22 situation because of the interaction between Pakistani establishment and the military establishment, and then military establishment and the jihadi establishment.
Government is caught in a bind, I think, the Imran Khan's government, isn't it?
That's what it is. They're caught in their own web, and they have to get out of this web. This is Pakistan's problem. Pakistan has to come out of it to be able to sit with civilized nations.
What about this now, the world reaction to India's bombing in Pakistan? And the Canadian government's official statement has been issued, including from the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party. Of course, what do you think of that?
Well, okay. What you're saying is correct. I remember the Canadian government, the Foreign Affairs made a statement condemning this Pulwama terrorist act. They did. They also talked about in preventing this radicalization of these kind of elements. I know that opposition leader Andrew Scheer also talked about condemning about this.
Yeah.
But the strange part is this. I mean, these are not the only two political parties. I mean, Canadian polarity is bigger than these two parties. I mean, I would have expected some statement coming from NDP. I would have expected some statement from People's Party. I would have expected some statement from Parti Québécois. I would have thought even the Green Party, because they have a representative now.
Yes.
But none of these parties have really come out of it, because extremism and terrorism is as much Canada's problem as the entire world's.
Right.
Yes, I think.
Why do you think that didn't happen? I mean, Jagmeet Singh could have made a statement.
Oh yes, and it was very important for him because he was in the election phase at that point of time, and it would have gathered more support for Jagmeet Singh had he openly come out against terrorism. But this also tells us that there are fractures within our polity here in Canada. We have to we are a peace-loving nation, we are a peacekeeping nation, and so on. But I think in order to sustain peace, we have to do our part. We have to come out openly to speak against terrorism, and the rest of the world. When I look at that, they really made very strong statements. I feel a little upset. Yes, Canada could have made a little stronger
See,
statement.
the problem is that the tensions still persist on the Pakistan-India border. There is shelling every day. I mean, when is it going to end? When and how?
You see, I come back to the question that you asked. What next? My sense is this, that if the goal of Pakistan was that by making this Pulwama attack, they would have weakened Prime Minister Modi. In fact, the opposite has happened. They have strengthened him. And now there would be a majority BJP government like before, and Prime Minister Modi would be the Prime Minister again. And if that happens, that puts terrorism as a priority for the next government. And I am pretty confident now. They have broken the barrier.
Yes.
They have called the nuclear bluff. Now, India would go anywhere in any territory to hit these terrorist targets, because this is, even if you look at the region, it is not just India. Iran has a problem, Afghanistan has a problem, India has a problem. So it is a regional problem, it's an international problem, and I think that I think it is not long before the world, that's why I got together to condemn this attack so strongly and to actually help India in dealing with this. And then you see that even the United States, they said that India has the right for self-defense. So my sense is the door is open now for next time. Anything that happens next time, India is going to hit hard and harder each time until this menace is eliminated.
Anyway, thanks a lot, Dr. Kaushik. And
nice talking to you.
We had a very interesting discussion on the Pulwama attack and its aftermath. More later. Okay, thank you again, Dr.
Just great.
Thanks.
Nice talking to you, Bala.